Hello, I'm Nima Rajan, and welcome to Northwest Newsweek. A huge forest fire in the far north was threatening the Keewaywin First Nation this week. Red Lake Fire 23 reached over 72,000 hectares in size and was burning just 8 kilometers southwest of the community. Heavy smoke led to an evacuation of children and elderly starting on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday night, the Chief and Council declared a full Stage 2 evacuation. Alana Pickrell has the story.
It's a state of emergency as members of the Keewaywin First Nation have been evacuated to Sioux Lookout and Timmins, Ontario. Over 200 of the community's most vulnerable members were flown to Sioux Lookout at the beginning of the week. This left about half of the community still in close range to the out-of-control forest fire following the initial evacuation. After the Chief and Council declared a Stage 2 full evacuation, the remaining community members were being flown to Timmins. We spoke to MNR Fire Operations Supervisors Roger Lemieux on Wednesday, and he outlined their strategy for Keewaywin.
We do have crews and values protection staff that are going to be heading up there with an incident management team. So they're going to look at some opportunities to either suppress the fire or at least do values protection on the community.
New Democrat MPP Saul Mamakwa is calling on the Ford government for support during this natural disaster. Mamakwa says the government needs to make sure that Sioux Lookout has the resources and funds it needs to help the families who had to evacuate. Red Lake Fire 23 grew to more than 54,000 hectares in size and was the largest fire within the Northwest region. However, there are 27 other active fires, with 10 of them not being under control.
We're high to extreme across the western portion of the region. Through central portions, which received rain over the last day and a half, we're in the moderate, but that's going to take a day to get back into high and extreme, and I expect that we'll be busy with the fresh lightning that we just recently had.
The MNR issued a new release Friday morning stating that the smoke from Red Lake Fire 23 will be noticeable across the southern portion of the Northwest region. Alana Pickrell, TBT News.
Tributes are pouring in for the former NDP Member of Parliament, John Rafferty, who passed away on Sunday at the age of 65. Rafferty, who would have turned 66 on Wednesday, passed away after a lengthy battle with cancer. He served in the House of Commons from 2008 to 2015 and was also a former CKPR broadcaster before turning to politics. Mayor Bill Morrow, who was a frequent opponent of Rafferty's, says his commitment to his party and to the people of his city represent a legacy that his family can take great pride in. City Councillor Andrew Folds also extended his condolences and reflected on his last conversation with Rafferty.
He was more interested in knowing how I was doing than some of the challenges he's been battling in the last 8 months. And I think that really is symbolic of who he was politically, but also as a person. He was much more concerned about how other people were doing than sometimes himself. And I think that will be his legacy.
When I think about the length of time that John served, he always did so with dignity. He always did so with a deep passion and commitment to Northwestern Ontario. And, he was obviously very well respected. And so I just am grateful to him.
Many other politicians, such as Ontario NDP leader Andrea Horwath, were saddened by the loss, and in a statement, she says the NDP family will remember and miss his caring nature, his love for Thunder Bay and Northern Ontario, and especially his contagious sense of humor. Greenstone OPP have charged a Nakina woman with dangerous driving causing death after an incident last Thursday on a gravel road near that community. OPP say a young man fell out of the back of a pickup and was pronounced dead at the scene. He's been identified as 24-year-old Adam Weens of Atikokan. Police believe there were 3 people riding in the back of the truck at the time of the incident, along with 3 people in the cab. The driver, 36-year-old Aaron McPherson, has also been charged with failing to stop at an accident resulting in death. Her next court appearance is August 15th. Several communities in the Rainy River District are thanking the province for some much-needed investment. Kenora Rainy River MPP Greg Rickford recently toured several of the recipient communities to let them know the good news. Adam Riley was there, and he files this report.
Some much-needed infrastructure work is about to get underway in Dawson Township, thanks to a sizable funding commitment from the provincial government.
So I'm here today to announce $500,000, I think it's $494,000 officially, for the Colonization Road culvert replacement.
The culvert has been condemned for some time, and due to liability, the township was forced to close the road, which grants several residents quicker access to some of the sections of farmland. Mayor Bill Langer says the funding means a lot for the community of 500 and could have some effect on the local economy.
In the short term, it'll certainly help with the employment and supplying gravel and so forth. But in the long term, once it's back in place, we'll probably revert to business as usual.
I made a promise last year that I would be down here and committed to major infrastructure projects. This one to the tune of $500,000 to repair this critical piece of infrastructure that the Township of Dawson has identified as its #1 priority. Unfortunately, as we've seen in the past, this and other projects have already been to the altar and turned down, but that's not happening now.
And while it is a large amount of money, Rickford says he wants the federal government to step in and assist with the project. Rickford was also in nearby Rainy River, presenting that community with $31,000 to create a 12-month internship program for a culture and tourism promoter. Both Rickford and Rainy River Mayor Deb Ewald hope to attract a local student who wants to come and work in their home community.
We've had them in the past, and the last couple of years we've had people, and then they tried the local route again, and it didn't really work out with not very much experience, first off. And so we're hoping that there's someone that's graduated from that background will be able to do it.
Rickford also announced an investment of $56,000 through the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation for Hyatt's Mannion Lake Camp north of Mine Centre to expand its operation with a new outpost cabin and to install several small solar panels to reduce energy costs. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Thunder Bay is set to get its first authorized cannabis store in the fall. The Ontario government has announced the next round of shops that will be allowed to sell pot. The province will license 50 new private cannabis retail stores this time around and has allocated one each for Thunder Bay, Kenora, North Bay, Sault Ste. Marie, and Timmins. Interested parties would submit an expression of interest form online to the AGCO this summer. 8 stores are also planned for retailers on First Nation reserves. That lottery will be separate on a first-come, first-served basis. The Thunder Bay license is expected to receive a lot of interest. The Bedlam Head Shop on Algoma Street will be applying for the second time. Owner Ray-Jean Runciman says having a cannabis store would definitely meet her customers' demands.
When we found out that we are going to get a location, it was exciting. Whether we get it or not, we're happy for the city. It'll be convenient for people instead of ordering offline. We have a lot of customers that don't have credit cards or any means to order off the website, so it'll be good for people in town.
The 50 new private cannabis retail stores will be authorized once all requirements are met, such as sufficient funding and a retail space, and stores can then open once they conclude their supply agreements with the Ontario Cannabis Store in October 2019. The District Health Unit is teaming up with the Thunder Bay Drug Strategy and Drug Awareness Committee to launch a survey about cannabis use. The 14-question anonymous survey is the first of its kind to come from the Health Unit. It asks questions regarding the health effects of cannabis, the introduction of edible products, and driving after consuming pot. Health Unit Promotion Planner Sheena Albanese says the data that they gather will be used to understand what topics users and non-users want to talk about and will help to develop educational programs to answer their questions.
From what I've seen so far, it ranges from people who have never tried cannabis in their lifetime, people who have, but it's way in the distant past, and people who have been regular users. So I think that and they may have different interests and needs in terms of what education they would like to have. So that's another thing that we hope the survey will tell us more about. It's really just about meeting the needs of community members around this topic.
The survey can be found on the Health Unit's website and their Facebook page, and paper copies will be brought to the community events this month. The survey will remain open for people around the district until August 2nd. Marathon's fire department is down a key piece of equipment after it burst into flames on Thursday. An initial call to a fire at the Williams Mine east of the community came in shortly after 3 o'clock in the morning. While en route to the blaze near the Roos Lake, the department's tanker truck caught fire. Remaining crews continued to the mine while mutual aid from Mantawaj was called in. After finishing at the mine, crews returned to the tanker only to discover that it was a total loss. Fire Chief Kent Reedman says the cause of the truck fire is now under investigation. There is also no word on the amount of damage at the mine. Nearly 2 months after it was announced that the Thunder Bay district is at risk for Lyme disease, officials say that they have seen a record number of black-legged ticks turned in by the public. This week, the Thunder Bay District Health Unit's vector-borne disease program has been tick-dragging areas of interest. Corey Nordstrom caught up with the team at one of the area's hotbeds for black-legged ticks.
Matthew Bradica is the summer intern for the vector-borne disease program by the Thunder Bay District Health Unit. He has been busy this summer with active surveillance, or tick dragging, to better inform the public on areas that have black-legged ticks, the only ones which transmit Lyme disease.
They perch on tall grass or the leaves of shrubs, and as soon as a host walks by, so as soon as I walk by with the cloth, they stick their front legs up, and because they detect the carbon dioxide that I'm emitting, and then as soon as I brush past them with the cloth brushes past them, then they attach.
This area here near Rabbit Mountain is the location of the first black-legged tick found in the region through active surveillance. The district health unit will be tick dragging other areas of interest where 2 or more black-legged ticks have been submitted by the general public. Bradica says those submissions have broken records for the number of black-legged ticks received.
So far, we've had about 50 black-legged ticks brought into us, and we are expecting even more, because most of the time we get most of our ticks in the fall, which is when they're at their peak.
Because of the distinction of being at risk, there will now be what Public Health Ontario considers confirmed cases here in Thunder Bay.
And now that we're a risk area, we're going to see confirmed cases for Thunder Bay. It wasn't possible in the past because of the definition for a confirmed case. But if someone they think they've been bitten by a black-legged tick, then they should check the Thunder Bay website to see what the symptoms are. They should start to appear within a couple of weeks.
Corey Nordstrom, TVT News.
When we come back, a Nipigon area man has spent the last few years helping fish get past an abandoned dam. And now he's looking to take out the structure to help increase fish populations. They're like fish trapped in the proverbial barrel. For 60 years, an abandoned dam on the Black Sturgeon River has been preventing several species of fish from moving upstream to spawn. One Nipigon area resident has been fighting the problem on two fronts. He's been capturing and relocating fish from one side of the dam to the other, and he's also working to convince the government to remove it. Adam Riley reports.
I'm surprised why people are not more upset about what's happening here.
Every day for 2 months of the year for the last 4 years, Philip McGuire has been coming to the Black Sturgeon River Dam to transport the various species of aquatic wildlife over the obstruction to their spawning grounds upstream. He says the river is one of the main food supplies for the Black Bay and northern section of Lake Superior, and the dam is killing off that supply line.
This is a huge river, and it's accessed by just about 400,000 acres of drainage from the land, right? And the stuff that's coming up this river is what feeds that land. No matter what it is, from fish to like worms, spiders, crayfish, it feeds the land. Just with walleye alone, over like 170 million pounds of food.
And despite a sign to the contrary, anglers have been fishing at the foot of the dam, picking off the fish one by one. As a result, McGuire has noticed some drastic changes in a short period of time. In 2018, he helped 500 pickerel and 24 sturgeon, but this year only 100 pickerel and 8 sturgeon, which has him concerned that something is wrong with the health of the river. The dam was erected in 1959 by the Great West Timber Company, which used it to aid log drives before it was abandoned 5 years later. Then in 1968, the dam burst and washed away a huge section of land, leaving just the bedrock. McGuire has been advocating for the removal of the dam for some time now, and 7 years after the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry began an impact assessment for the removal of the dam, it still stands.
Michael Gravel put out a letter 2013 that the dam should be coming out, but that's the only official government document that I've seen.
A big concern for some is if the dam is removed, it could allow for some of Lake Superior's invasive species, such as the lamprey, which latch onto the sides of fish before chewing their way into their flesh, access to some of the inland lakes and rivers. But McGuire says he hasn't encountered any lampreys for some time.
Everybody's worried about the lamprey. I haven't seen a lamprey here for at least 10, 15 years for sure that I've been here.
A 2017 draft environmental study regarding the demolition of the dam suggested the use of a multi-purpose lamprey barrier and the application of lampricide. A spokesperson for the MNRF says the ministry is working with the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks to determine the next steps. But until then, McGuire, who is 72, will continue to move as many fish as he can. Adam Riley, TBT News.
A traffic stop by Sioux Lookout OPP late last month has netted a Winnipeg man several charges. Officers found the man to be driving while under suspension and upon further investigation discovered several open alcohol containers in the vehicle, and the driver refused a breath sample. A further search of the vehicle also located $9,400 Canadian, a loaded handgun, a brass knuckle knife, a butterfly knife, 3 ounces of cocaine, 2 grams of meth, and approximate value of $8,700. As a result, the 35-year-old man is facing a long list of charges, including drug trafficking, unauthorized firearm and weapon possession, and driving while under suspension, among others. He appeared in court on Wednesday. Canadians will be going to the polls once again this fall for the 2019 federal election, and things are heating up even further in the Thunder Bay Rainy River riding. Already slated to run this election is former Thunder Bay City Councillor Linda Ridholm and Confederation College educator Yuk San Wan running for the Conservatives and the New Democrats respectively. There is also a large group of names currently vying to replace incumbent Don Rusnak for the Liberals. But one of Canada's newest parties will also have a voice in the riding going into the election. Rainy River Councillor Andrew Hartnell will be running for the People's Party of Canada, created last year by former Conservative Cabinet Minister and party leadership hopeful Maxime Bernier. An avid follower of Canadian politics, Hartnell was attracted to what Bernier and the party could offer Canadians and isn't discouraged by being the lone candidate from the region.
I know the area well, and even though I'm at the end of the riding, I think it kind of gives me advantage that way because I've lived in both sides of the riding, and I think I know what this riding needs and what the people need and what we want to accomplish. So
A man paddling a canoe under the influence in the pitch dark in Sioux Lookout is facing multiple charges. OPP received a report of an allegedly intoxicated man paddling towards the shore near a hotel. The man was not wearing a life jacket and there were no lights on the canoe, nor was there any safety gear on board. Further investigation helped police determine that the 38-year-old man had been drinking and was subsequently arrested. He's been charged with operation while impaired, alcohol and drugs, and operation while impaired with a blood concentration over the legal limit, and is expected to be back in court on August 6th. Coming up after the break, visitors get a look at the new and improved Wilderness Discovery Camp. The restoration of the Wilderness Discovery Center is getting closer to completion. Several service clubs in Thunder Bay are spearheading the $1 million repair of the fully accessible camp on Shabandowin Lake. The group held an open house this past weekend in hopes of attracting more volunteers to help get the big job done. Jonathan Wilson reports.
Been out here.
Wilderness Discovery President Bob Hookham and his wife Linda have spent much of the past 2 summers organizing volunteers to rebuild and repair the main hall and 5 accessible cabins at this camp for the disabled. The former Rotary Club president says the project is about 70 to 75% complete, and most of the fully accessible cabins are now open to users.
Well, it's pretty well fully accessible right now. We're still under construction, but we've got most of the interiors except for cabin 1 pretty well complete. We've actually had renters out here already. We've got one family here for the weekend. We've had other groups in and they said, what we've done is awesome. We've done it right. We've done it for them. And that was the whole purpose of this thing.
Oh, it's amazing. That workmanship is just, it's top notch, and everybody that's out here is doing just a great job.
Thaddeus Weiss was a longtime president of the Handicapped Action Group, which originally built this facility in the 1980s. He says it means so much to people with mobility issues who rarely get to sit by a bonfire or get out on a lake.
It gives you a totally new look on how you can live and just get back into nature, being able to get out of a city or institutional setting. It definitely provides everything somebody needs that's physically disabled or disabled of mobility issues.
The $1 million project received $400,000 from the province. Hookham says everything is progressing on budget. The Rotary Clubs are providing $100,000 from this year's house lottery. Hagee contributes money from its TV bingos, and the Hill City Kinsmen are providing $70,000 from their recent boat draw. Former Kin President Jeff Jones says what they need more than anything are corporate sponsors and volunteers.
Yeah, right now it's having skilled volunteers and people that can come up and give some time during the week. If you're retired and you are in a trade and want to come out and volunteer, that would be great. We could definitely use you.
The volunteers hosted an open house this past weekend to drum up support. The camp's grand reopening was supposed to happen this month, but after some cabins required more repairs than expected, it's now been put off until next spring when the work is completed. Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
A special honor was bestowed upon several Air Cadets from Fort Frances last month during the 75th anniversary of the Normandy landings. On June 6th, dignitaries from allied nations gathered to pay respect to those who served and those who didn't come home on D-Day. Among the crowds paying tribute were members of the 908 Rainy Lake Air Cadet Squadron, including Flight Corporal Daxon Batik. His grandfather not only served, but also participated in the D-Day landings. Batik was there to also represent Leslie Jackson, one of the 359 Canadians that were killed that day.
It was really somber. When we were walking the beach, it was a real beautiful place. Not like it was in 1944, I'm sure, but it was really somber. No one talked. We were all silent walking across the beach. And then everyone in front of me started moving, and I placed my rose in the fence, and that felt really important to me.
Batik says because of his family's history in the armed forces, he hopes to join the Air Force one day as well. And that'll do it for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. I'm Nima Rajan. Take care.